you about the AMP. AMP is a register in India, USA, UK, and Australia as a non-profit organization. AMP has completed its 13 years serving our community in the field of education, employment, and empowerment. AMP has a vision to positively impact lives of 10 million people by 2030. If we talk about the mission, then to empower the underprivileged for the greater benefit of the society in general and nation as a whole. AMP's vision is to advance in education, socially progressive, culturally vibrant, politically influential, and economically dynamics. If we talk about the achievements of the AMP, then around 2,800 plus skill development lectures till that conducted, 800 plus schools connected, 281,000 students benefited, 110 plus teacher training and parenting workshop has happened, 360 plus job fairs, 21,000 candidates employed till now, 220 plus employability training program AMP has done till now, 17,000 plus degree student has benefited, 800 plus higher education scholarships, 860 orphan education, 425 plus families transformed by offering self-employment assistance, 660 plus career counselors, 2,500 plus student counseling, 50 plus documented on career guidance, 1,500 plus career chart, 380 plus renowned educationalists connected and awarded, 50 plus partners for skill training and job fairs, including state governments, and 100 plus partners NGOs for various programs. If we talk about the recent initiatives of the AMP, then AMP has recently launched indiazakat.com, the indiamentors.com, and amppowerjobs.com. If we talk about the AMP Rich, then on-ground presence, 140 plus active chapters we have till now, 26 plus states with us, 16 countries, and 6,000 plus active members. We are having a huge presence on online. It is 1,20,000, 25,000 plus online presence is there. So this is all about the AMP, and this is the short introduction of AMP. Thank you, sir. Over to you. Thank you.
Hello everyone. Today we have with us a very eminent personality to speak on this topic. We have with us Mr. Asghar Ali Wasi. He is the founding director of the Center of Excellence for Post-Harvest Biotechnology at the University of Nottingham. He has led projects worth more than 15 million Malaysian ringgit. Sir is also the author and co-author of more than 200 research publications. He sits as an expert for various international funding bodies, including UK Research and Innovation International Development. He is also an associate editor and member of advisory panels in various journals. Sir has also received several awards for his achievements. Thank you.
Jazakallah khair, Amir. Now I invite Professor Asghar to take the floor and share with us his vision.
So, Assalamu alaikum and good evening, everyone. So, first of all, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the AMP and also Sayyid Khalil Sahab for inviting me to give this talk. I hope this talk will be very useful for the young researcher or even the established academics, because these are the very important matrices nowadays people are using for giving grants or in promotion or any stages in your academic career. So I'm going to talk about that. What are the impacts you should have as an academic and how it is useful. And if you have these things early in your career, then it will be easy for you to promote yourself in the academic area. So I will give you my example, because this is for the H-index and citations and other things. So I will show you some examples. Actually, this is a very interactive session, but we can't do it interactive at this moment. But please feel free to ask any questions, any queries if you have it. So I will go through that. So I think he has already introduced to me. This is some of the things like I'm the professor and I'm the founding director of Center of Excellence for Post-Harvest Biotechnology at the University of Nottingham, Malaysia campus. I completed my PhD in 2006 and joined Nottingham, Malaysia campus in 2006, same year in September, and became professor in 2014 at the age of 37. So I was the first professor in the Faculty of Science, and having a 15-year experience, and my focus area is basically on agricultural sciences, especially horticultural production systems, post-harvest technology, and how can we enhance the shelf life of fruits and vegetables, and how fruits and vegetables can play an important role in human diets. And this is very important now because we are talking about COVID-19 and we're talking about how can we increase the immunity in our body to fight against these in this virus. So this is some of my area. So there's some about I received various grants and having good experience in the research management. And some of my articles become top 25 hottest article by Science Direct and Elsevier in the various journals in my area. And this also disseminated through National Geography, Earth Sky, and several other renowned outlet. Like he has already mentioned that I'm the external reviewer, external expert for various external funding bodies such as UKRI, Italian Ministry of Science, Chilean government, Portuguese government, British Council, Malaysian government, and Irish Research Council from the Ireland. So I sit in the panel to give a grant or allocate a grant and whom I can give a grant. So, and I sit in the panel, and this is very important for me because I do not know some of the area is exactly not known to me. So this is very important, like when talking about measuring impact, what are the matrices? So first stage, I normally go to look at the matrices and look at the individual quality, look at the organization quality, and then this enables me to do something, to do my groundwork on allocating grants or giving grants to them. So I published several papers, editorships in associate editors and editors in different journals, you know, in my area, and I have citations about 4,000, which I think is 36. So before I go, this is what I do. I'm from University of Nottingham. You can see this picture. This is the University of Nottingham, based in the United Kingdom. It has 5 campuses. So 3 campuses in the UK, within the England itself, and this is the first university who has a full-fledged international branch campuses overseas. So one in Malaysia, another one in China. And you can see that this University of Nottingham is very famous. You will knowing that it has the 18th rank in the United Kingdom, and it just came, I think, the day before yesterday, and it has a 114 place in the top ranking university in the world. So this University of Nottingham is known by several alumni, and out of this, these 3 are the most famous alumni from there, like Sir Peter Mansfield. He got the Nobel Prize in MRI scanning, and we all know that MRI is famous. So he did a pioneer work on the scanning of these images. Second one is Professor Clive Granger. He got Nobel Prize in economics, so these are the 2 famous Nobel laureates. Another famous personality is that is Stewart Adams, and he is, you know, when we take this painkiller Brufen, so it was developed by Brufen painkiller was by this guy. It's ranked top 1% of the university worldwide, and it's 97% of the research at the university is recognized internationally. And this is a very global university, with 46,000 students. Now I think it's about 47,000, and from the 140 different countries, and about 8,000 staff, academic staff, 7,800 something. So this is something about University of Nottingham. So like I said, it has 2 international campuses. You can see this is a picture from China campus, and this is the picture from Malaysia campus. So they have very beautiful campus overseas. And one thing is common in all 3 campuses are a clock tower and the lake. So wherever you go, you can see these 2 features is there, clock towers and the face in all five campuses, 2 overseas and 3 in the UK. So this was the center, which was when I joined in 2006, and I was talking to the people in the UK. There should be some center which is based on post-harvest losses of perishable product. And you know that these post-harvest losses are very important, and they are very important, particularly in this region, Asia region and Southeast Asia region, where you need more food to eat people. And you can say that 1/3 of the food what we produce is being wasted. And that's the reason. So I was pushing for that. I got a big funding, and then this center was established in 2010 by University of Nottingham. So I was the founding director of this. So objective of this talk is to introduce different matrices for measuring academic impact. So what are the academic impacts? So, and I have given this talk, and it's very useful for the young researchers. I've seen, I've sit in the various panel for promotion committee, even the external reviewer for many professorships from Australia, India, England, and some places. And I found that, and I'm also mentoring some of the young staff to become promotion. So many staff, they don't know what are the importance of these matrices. And they are not aware of that, how they can be judged based on impact. So sometimes the people know that, okay, published papers in journals, so they know that this is the quality journals in their area, but what are the other outlets where he can create an impact, and what are the matrices, what we, when we sit for the promotion committee or giving a grant to the external party or any other purpose, so we initially look for the matrices. And this talk is also aimed to introduce the concept of H-index. I think I started giving this talk, because I think a few years back, I think 3, 4, 5 years back, somebody came and asking for to look at his CV, whether if she was ready for the promotion or not. So I was looking into the CV. She has all the content, all the ingredient, which were good enough to promote for the next level. But what I came to know that after talking to her, that oh, she didn't know about the H-index, and this is what I told. If you're going to see the dean, he's going to ask you about the H-index. And she was, oh, what is this H-index? She has published a very good paper. She got the grant, but she was not aware of the H-index. So immediately she has opened the account in front of me, and I helped them, and this is what happened. And so I thought that, okay, many academics, they are not aware of that. And then I started talking about these things to the academic people. So why we measure success, the most important thing, why we measure success in academic life, and even measuring the scientific performance is very complicated. It means that when you sit for the promotion committee, you have different people, deans of different faculties, people having different different backgrounds and different expertise in different areas. So first thing, they look into the matrices. Nowadays, it's very important to look into the matrices, which will tell you that, okay, these are the tick, tick, tick. There's something in the paper, you can say tick, okay, here's this one, here's this one, here's this one. Although some people are not aware about your exact area. So they do not know about which journals you are published in and whether that journal is very good in that particular area or not. But nowadays, there are a lot of things online available. They can check it, and it is what happened in my promotion. I will tell you later on. So this scientific performance is very complicated and also very important, but you can find on the different outlets, and it can easily be countable, I can say that. So there are various methods of measurements, and there are various methods of comparison have been proposed. So none of the individual mechanism is very perfect, but in combination of all these mechanisms, you will able to know, you will draw a conclusion that, okay, this is number 1, number 2, or number 3. So this is very, very important, measuring success in your academic career, and you should care about that, because without that, you're not going to get the next level. Because how do you measure how good you are as a scientist? It means that if you're a scientist, I am a scientist, you are a scientist, what are the basis of that? How do you stand from the other scientists who's sitting next to your door? So, and these matrices will tell you that to some extent that, okay, you are better than them or you are lower than them, and how you compare yourself. Second one, how do you compare the impact of two scientists on a field? So this is very important. In the same field, now easy to know that which scientist is better. Is comparing two scientists, and you have to compare. I'm not saying that comparing is a good thing, but you have to you need a comparison for every step in your academic career, where it is for getting grants, or getting seed grants, or where getting external grants or promotions or career development. So they need to compare, and there are some matrices where they can use to compare yourself with your colleagues. What if you had to decide to which one to get a promotion first? It means that in promotion, you apply 3 people from the same department, and they need to promote one. So they need to decide. So there are some matrices they can find out, and I will tell you later on. This is also very important because, like I mentioned earlier, what if you had to decide which one would get a grant? When I sit in various funding bodies, I think the first step is to, they look for all the applications, and the initial secretarial job is that to give us a note on that. So first note is that they will look into the individual PI's performance, and they will make some note on that. Okay, this PI has this H index, this PI has published this paper, this PI was this PI got like this amount of grant or something, whatever the information they can find on the website, or in some of the funding agencies, they want this information to be mentioned in the proposal. So first thing job is they do all these matrices and just make a note on that. And then it is also useful when you're deciding finally, let's say if you have a limited amount of funding, I need to you need out of 10 applications, and you need to give a funding to the one application. So, and you can see that out of 10 applications, 2 or 3 proposals are almost in the same rank and same quality, maybe almost similar quality. Then this will help you. Ultimately, we will go into that to look for the matrices. Sometimes it happened to me also in the committee, and we found that these proposals are really good. So we go to the individual level matrices, and then still we see that they are equally par with each other. Then we will go for the group level matrices. Group level matrices means how many co-PIs in that grant and how those co-PIs having a matrices. So we look into the matrices of all the co-PIs and their performance. And that will help us to go to the next stage. And it happens quite often nowadays. It also employers to give jobs, when you make your CV, and I think in every employment, they look for to some matrices, at least first 10 matrices, the quality of publications, the H index, and all these things. So employers to give jobs, used as a criteria for promotions, many CVs, they send from each department. When you go to the final level at the industry board levels, and there are various people from various departments sitting there, and they need to look at these matrices. Career development is very important. It means that it's also good for you to know that where you are at par with that. And I will show you, it is easy to look into that in particular area, like my area is food systems or post-harvest technology. But at least it gives me some indicator where I am in my area. It's good to compare within your area, and it will help you, to go further into that direction. And most of all, it gives you personal satisfaction. Okay, sometimes you get bored after working for 15 years, and you say, okay, we're quite stagnant. So what you need to do to go to the next level? So personal satisfaction is also important for academic people. So these scientific scores could seriously impact our career. Those were the days, these were not very important, and it was very difficult to calculate and very difficult to get the quantitative data for your academic performance. But nowadays, very important, very easy to get the quantitative data for your performance. You can know the number of papers, you can know the quality of papers, you can know the impact of the journals, you can know the impact of the individual papers. So these are the very important matrices, and you can get it very easily. These are and these are the I think the first hand is for every academic things they will look into some of the matrices. This is very important in our career. So there are several matrices I mentioned to you, like for measuring scientific. I think you all remember that the earlier days recommendations from the peer. So that was the only way to get, like if you are applying for the board the last time, they will only know if you need to produce a recommendation letter. Still, you need to give a recommendation letter from your peers. It's a very good idea. It will give you all sort of things how you are in principle, but the subject to the human nature. This is not a very good way of measuring academic individuals. How? Because it will tell you how your relationship with your peers, how is your relation with your head of departments, maybe if you're giving a reference letter. And that is more about the perception rather than about the actual things. So perception is about that how you interact with your peers. It will reflect in the recommendation letter, and it can be biased. It can be heavily biased. It can be you can see the advantages and disadvantages of recommendation letter. Advantages is that if you have a good relationship with your peer, they can write something good for you, although you are not very good in your academic career. If you are very good in academic career and you do not have a very good personal relation from the peers, he may write something else and which will reflect negatively to the employers. And I have some examples on that. I know one of my colleagues, he did for many years and it happened to him actually. So this is one way of recommendation for the peers. Number of articles published, this is another major, that you can publish a number of articles. So you can see that a long publication list, but no impact, no citations. So you can see that in your CV, we always mention about the publication list 1 to 200. So maybe you have 100 publications, but there are not much impact of those publications. Maybe the citations are very little, or maybe you have published the work which is already published by many people or very similar to that people. There is a lack of novelty, lack of things. Means you can have a long list of publications here and there. Some people publish in predatory journals and other journals. It has no impact on that. So this is another drawback when you are not going into the quantitative data. Or another example is that a small number of publications are better than the long list if they have more citations. So nowadays, this is very important. This is what I'm going to tell you about, that quality is very important as compared to quantity of your academic performance. If you have a very small number of publication and a very high quality, then this is good. And this is, I think, most of the top universities, they're looking for that. Maybe less publications, but it should have a very high quality publications. Especially in the UK universities, in the Russell Group of universities, they look into the quality publication rather than the quantity of publications. Average number of citations per article is better. So that's why they come about that. If you have that is called as the H index, means how many articles have been got citations. Let's say if you have published 100 publications, 100 papers you have published, but the citations of 100 publications is very less. So it will tell you that is how important research area is, and whether you are doing the research in your particular area, and this is what people looking into that is important. If let's say if you're doing a research which has no impact or very little impact, means why you are wasting your money on doing research which has no impact or very little impact. So that is the things you can know from these matrices. So, okay, so other than the traditional way of that recommendation letter, so there are other ways to measure the impact, like impact of the journal. So most of you know that journal impact factors. So it means that nowadays easy to get, and I will show you some of the website where you can see it's called as a journal impact factor. Means what is the quality of the journal? I'm not talking about the individual policy. What is the quality of that particular journal? It's like a journal that is called as a journal impact factor. Journal citation reports, journal citations ranking. You can see the JCR, and now it is coming from the Clarivate, and you can see clearly which journal you are publishing and what is the ranking in particular area. So now it's very easy to set a journal citation report. So that is from the Clarivate, and you can see easily. I will show you some examples of this later on. How can you get the ranking of your journal? So anybody can look into the papers and can see that what is the quality and where you are publishing it. Simogo is a website where you can see all these things, your impact of the journals, what is the impact factor. Impact factor is calculated based on the citation of that paper in that particular journal. Journal citation reports will tell you from the Clarivate what is the ranking of these journals in your particular area, overall ranking and also in particular area. And that will give anybody can, whether it is from your field or not, he will be able to know that what is the ranking of that publication or what is the ranking of your quality of your journals. Another thing, your impact based on the citations, based on the citations to the articles. So quality of the journals, number 1, ranking of the journal is number 2, and then impact of the citation of the article. Where you have published the articles, what is the impact of that articles? Means where you are you publishing in a good outlet? Whether you are publishing a paper is a good quality, that will tell you all the matrices. And comprehensive resource with citation information nowadays will come from the different databases. Google Scholar is a very general one, and it includes all the databases where your articles are published. It will also capture scientific articles, scientific citations, or the general citations, like your citation is cited by the newspaper and blogs and all these things. So Google Scholar, Scopus is a very scientific and very quality databases and Web of Science. So I'm going to give you two examples. How can you use these two databases, Google Scholars and Scopus? I'm not going to use the Web of Science because there is not much enough time, and you don't need that one if you have these two databases to measure your impact. And these above databases calculate the H index. So you should need to know that what the H index is that, but you shouldn't worry about that, how you calculate this H index. But because nowadays there are websites, there are databases, you can automatically calculate the H index of your papers and publications. So you shouldn't worry about that, but you should know the simple calculations and concept of each H index. Other than these, there are several other databases. You have been hearing that. One is that like Scopus, Psychoinformations, PubMed, InBase, Science Direct, Science Finder. These are the other databases which are less important. People are not into that. Other than these databases, you can see there are Altmetrics is getting very, very important nowadays. This Altmetrics, this is becoming very popular. So this is Altmetrics actually that this is we will know that who is talking about your research, and it is demonstrate the influence of your work to the funder and the evaluators. So Altmetrics is basically not the quantitative databases. Altmetrics is a qualitative databases. So it will tell you like Twitters, like blogs and different media outlets. And this is very important because very simple is that when you know anybody, you can go to the Google Scholar and search it and you can see several things coming out. So that is the Altmetrics, and it is getting very, very important. It is not the traditional database, but it can complement the traditional databases such as Scopus, Google Scholars, and Web of Science. But this is getting very, very important, and many universities and many institutions, they are into that and they are looking into that. Altmetrics. So I will show you some examples from myself, what the Altmetrics and what are the importance of these Altmetrics. There is also some other databases like PLOS, Scopus, ResearchGates, and other things. These are the other databases. Nowadays, you can see this year the top 2% scientists. So there are paper published in UC Davis, and they come about the different databases and measure the impact of top 2% of the scientists from those databases. So these are the databases to measure your impact. So okay, so let me clear your doubt about that. These are the matrices. Initially, journal level matrices means that quality of the journal, like I already mentioned to you, which is how will you know the quality of journals? Impact factors. So I think you have been hearing that a lot of impact factors, people are talking about impact factors of the journals. And in many CVs, you can find out that when they publish the paper, they write about the impact factor at the corners, impact factor 5, impact factor 10, impact factor 11. So these are the impacts. This will tell you the quality of the journal in a particular area. And you can't compare the impact factors between the two different areas. You can say that, okay, I publish an impact factor in 15 and you are publishing an impact factor in 3, but you are from biological sciences, I am from chemical engineering. So it is not good to compare the apple and oranges. You should compare within your own area. When talking biology, you check the impact factor, the journal of the journals which in the biology area. So in engineering, you compare, you go to the specific engineering area, such as like electronic and E&E, and you go for mechanical engineering and look at the general impact factor. So it's not, so don't go into those gossips, okay, I publish in 20, you publish in 3, no. Compare within your own area. That is a general level matrix. So it will tell you whether you are publishing, because are you publishing in the top journals in your area? Are you publishing in the good journal in your area? So that is a general level matrices. So impact factor of the papers, SGR indicator, which is called as a scientific journal ranking. So within nowadays, you can go to the very minute and very detailed level. So SGR will tell you that specific in the own area, like I am an agriculture scientist. then go for further in my specialization in horticulture. Even within the horticulture, I can go into particular into the post-harvest area. Even within the post-harvest area, I can see, okay, SGR indicator, what is the scientific journal ranking in my area? I'll show you some example of that. Other than the JCR indicator is Journal Citations Report. I think it comes from the Clarivate, and it will also talk about the quartile of the journals. Like you have been hearing that Q1, Q2, Q3 journals. The Q1 journals, so some people manage that because I can say these all three different matrices, and how your organizations and individual put focus on these three different matrices depends upon the individual, or is a combination of all three. So impact factor, as you indicators, and nowadays you'll be hearing that Q1 journals like top 25% in your area. Like I know in public university in Malaysia, like UPM and all these things, they don't bother about impact factors. They don't bother about the ranking. What they bother with the GCR indicator like Q1 journals. So if you publish Q1 journal, you will get 5,000 ringgit. If you publish in Q2 journal, you will get 3,000 ringgit. These kind of things is happening in many universities. Okay. Then you can go for the article level matrices. Like I said, article, which is called as the alt matrix, which is based on the diverse online research output, such as social media, online news, media, references, and this ranking newly published article in academic search engines like, I will tell you like what is called ResearchGate. You can see that there are others like Publons and all this. You can see some article level matrices, and alt matrix is getting very important nowadays. These are not the traditional metrics, but it complements these two, the journal level matrix and it also the author level matrix. So when you want to see the individual quality, this journal level matrix will tell you the quality of your work, okay, where you are publishing, what you are publishing, and what is the quality of these two things. And these author level metrics will tell you the quality of yourself. Like again, that can be measured by the H index. It means that you're publishing a one paper, whether it is liked by the people, other people around the world, and so that will tell you the citations of your individual journals. Even okay, it can happen like if you publish 10 papers, and out of 10 papers, one paper have 1,000 citations, and rest of the papers have only 2 or 3 citations. Then it again comes to the point, okay, you did very well, very good job 5 years back when you published this paper in Nature, and that got the citations of 2,000. But what happened after that? So after that means that what are the publications you are doing is not good quality and it's not having citation. So I believe and I think that the H index is a very good matrix, and let's discuss in the next few minutes what is good and what is bad for H index. So like this journal impact factors, is created in 1960s by Thomson Reuters. He started this impact of these journals. And this measures the frequency with which an average article has been cited and calculated by dividing the number of current year citations into the source item published in that journal during the previous years. How the impact factors changes. And I think you are aware of that, how the impact factors of the journals changes over the time. Like this year, different impact factor, next year may be up or down. It's because of calculate the dividing the number of current year citations into the source item published in that journal during the previous year. It means that citations of their own article, which was published in the last year, and that will have an impact on the impact factor in the next year. So some universities ask you to list impact factor on the CV for each publications, and that was like I think last decade, I think 5 years or 10 years back. I think when I submitted my CV for that time, it was very, very common and very useful to write down the impact factor of your journal publication. And still it is valid, and many people look into that. What is the impact factor of each publication? So, and you can mention in your CV. So this will tell you the highest impact factor, the most prestigious the journal is. Like this is how we see Nature Cells, which is impact factor 32, Lancet, which is like a 35, and all these things. So that is basically tell you the quality of the journal. So this quality of the journals, like I given to you example of SGR or journal ranking. So this is one example I will show you. I'm showing it here. You can easily go. Like I said, this is an interactive session, but feel free to ask any questions. So this is the SGR ranking, SCImago journals and country ranking. So what you can do, you can go to this website, you can check your broader area like engineering, and like I will give you my examples. So you can see that.
If anyone wants to ask questions, they can raise their hands. If the speaker is willing to take the questions, yeah, fine.
So you can go to this website, SGR website, and you can type it like agriculture and biological sciences. It is a very broader area, and we can go with the particular area in the agronomy and crop sciences. And whether you can go for country, normally we don't go for country, sorry, this is the old one, agronomy and crop sciences. And then you can see your citation ranking and ranking of the journals. And you can see this is my biotechnology journals, plant genomes and molecular plant interactions. The broader area, then go to the specific area and then give you the SGR ranking. You can see this is SGR, like I mentioned, Q1, Q2, Q3. So top 25 out, let's say if the agronomy and crop science has 301 journals, and it's showing 1 or 50. Out of 301 journals divided by 4, and this is how they have divided Q1, Q2, Q3, Q5. So top 25 is the Q1 journals. So some people, actually, what was the, I would say, discrepancies before that? If people were more counting on the impact factor of the journals, like this can be impact factor, for example, it's not mentioned here. Sites 2 years, site 2 years, 3 years, 3 years. Okay, like for example, is 6, and this can be 5.5. So if you look at the impact factor of the journals, this is number 1, this is number 2. But because due to some reason, they said that rather than going into very minute detail, why don't you go for the quartile? Like this is like when you do the statistics, like you can say that it is significant and non-significant, although it is high, but they made it non-significant. So you are publishing me and you are publishing Q1, we are at par with that. And of course, it is okay because, because we don't need to go into very minute, because it will also reflect the exact area of that. So maybe this plant biotechnology journal and plant genomes and this molecule, these are very, very different areas. So in order to award this one, but although it comes under this area, broader area, so award that one, that they will start at the SGR ranking like Q1, Q2, Q3. It will also tell you that from where it published, and so you can measure the agricultural and biological sciences and go to the particular area. Again, if you look into that, some journals, they fall into multiple area. And if you change this area, then their quartile will be changed in some cases, and also their ranking will be changed. For example, you can see the agriculture and biological sciences, agronomy and crop sciences, and it's still the broader area is agriculture and biological sciences, and go to the horticulture area. So then its broader area is the same. From crop science, we go to the horticulture area, like this is my area, and I go to the horticulture area, and then you can see in this horticulture area, what are the top journals. Like I publish in post-harvest biotechnology, so I publish like 8-9 journals until 8-9 papers in these journals. So this journal is number 1 into the horticulture area, whereas in previous slide you can see this is not the number of 1, it was number 5, because it's going to the just change the area, because it include the agriculture and horticulture. So when I move to the very specific area, then this journal from 5 it become number 1. So this is my very specialization is horticulture. It can come into this 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's look into this website. Means anybody can judge it. So if you're sitting, I'm sitting in the interview panel, I'm sitting into the promotion committee, I will easily look into these databases and find out that although my area is not engineering, but I will go into that area and find out that, and I can put some marks on that, and I can compare yourself with somebody else within the same area. So that is very helpful, and you need to know at the very early stages in order to get the promotion earlier or in the promotion committee or getting the job. So that is called as a SJR General Citations Ranking. Okay. Okay. Again, you can see the agriculture and food sciences. So my area was horticulture. My area is multidisciplinary area. My area is a little bit tricky. Like it falls into, even in the specific area, it falls into 2 sides: crop production, horticulture crops, and also in the food science. So so then again, I change to the food science, and I can see that this post-harvest biology was #1 in particular in horticulture because it involved the physiology. When come to the food science, it only deals with the food rather than the crop. So it changed the area, and you can see there are the ranking changes. Annual review, food chemistry become, and then the post-harvest becomes the 16 in the food area because there are many food-related, very specific food science and technology annual review. So it become 16 and the food chemistry become 15. So I publish in food chemistry also. The food chemistry falls into the food science area. So although same individual, I'm the individual and somebody you are looking into that. And you can see that if you go to the horticulture, you may not find the food chemistry in that area. But you come to the food science area, since my area falls into 2 different specializations, so I will go into the food science and will see the quality of the journal like food chemistry. Whereas food chemistry is not very valid into the crop science area because it doesn't do with the crop, it only deals with the food area. So these are the very good way to measure things. Okay, so this was the quality of your publication. This was the quality of your means which outlet you are publishing in. That is tell you the brand or which outlet you are selling your research. Now come to the individual matrices, which is called as the H index. It will tell you the individual's quality, means that what is your research quality and quality of your paper. So these actually this came into 2005, if I am not mistaken, I think. And this is an index to quantify the individual scientific research output, and it was invented by J. Hirsch. This is he was working in the California, I think, in one of the universities in California. And this index is an index that attempt to measure both the productivity and the citation impact. So individual productivity and also citation impact. Last time, people were focusing more on citations, means some individuals have citations of 10,000. So what was the problem? Like I mentioned it earlier, so when you're talking about the citations, means that you can publish just 5 papers, or these 5 papers may have citations of maybe 5,000. If you're publishing a 5 Nature paper, and then you have a citations of 5,000. Maybe if you have published only 3 papers and they have a citation of 3,000, so that is what we're measuring the citations. Or you have 100 papers, only 3 papers have good citations and 97 papers have very little citations. So that will that were only including the total citation number. So people were only counting about the citations. Then this guy, this is a, I think, French guy, J. Hirsch, he came out this index to look at the quality of your research output throughout your academic career. Means that what you have done 5 years before, that is fine, very good, but what you are doing at this moment, so that will tell you that whatever the things you are publishing, are you relevant to your relevant in that particular area, or means that you have done very good job and then after that you are just sleeping and enjoying. So I believe that H index is a very good. So it will tell you the productivity of your productivity and also the citation impact of the published body of your work of a scientist. And that index is based on the set of the scientists' most cited papers and the number of citations that they have received in the other publications. Okay, so don't worry, I will show you some example of that. So I think it's, yes, 2005. There is a University of California in San Diego is known for inventing that index, and he published this invention in the PNAS journals. And then people find out that, okay, this is something very good, and people started looking into that since 2005. And it is also called as the H index or H number. This is the guy. And this H index has been quickly adopted as the metrics of choice for many committees and bodies. And this is becoming more and more popular nowadays. Every methods or everywhere they are using it, whether it is even if you're going for postdoctoral research, you are going for doctoral research, scholarships, and postdoctoral researches, or applying for the jobs or any grant, all these things they are looking into this H index, and it's becoming popular day by day. So I thought of giving this talk to you can understand well at early career, then it will help you to go further in your academic career. So this is the H index. There are also the various variants of H index, that is a very less important, which is called as the G index or I-10 index. You can see that in Google Scholar means how many papers of yours have cited 10 times. So that will also give you like item index, and there are many more of that. So what is an index is that a scientist has an index H if the H number of papers have at least H citation index. Means that if you have a 10 in H index, it means that 10 of your papers cited by 10 times. Although you have had 20 publications, but out of 20 publications, 10 of your papers cited by 10 times, then you can only have a H index 10. So let's do some exercise. I think that's okay. For example, I have 12 papers, means that my H index is 5, and 5 of my papers have at least 5 citation index. Although I have 12 papers published, but my H index is 5, means out of 12 papers, 5 of my papers published 5 times. Clear? So let's do some exercise. So you can see that this is the article, number of articles. This is like number of articles, mean number 1 articles, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 12 articles I published out of 12 papers. And you can see that this is the citations of my articles. So number 1 articles I published, it was cited 87. Number 2 articles cited 70 times. Number 3 articles cited by 46 times. So can you tell me what is the H index of this author? Anyone? Somebody has published 12 papers, and this is the citation of his 12 papers. So what is the H index of this guy? Anyone? A scientist has an index of H. If H of his papers have at least H citations each, and other papers have at most H citations, means
There's one answer.
yeah. Okay, what is that? Where is that? Where is that?
Dr. Riyaz Hassan says it's 10.
It's 10. Okay. Anyone else? Any other one? Look at the papers, one paper cited 87 times, 7 papers cited 10 times, 8 papers cited 9 times, 9 papers cited 8 times. Anyone else think that? I can't see the 10, 12.
Ahmad says it's 12.
12. Okay, then let's look at how much H index he has. So what is the result is 8, the H index is 8. Because H articles have been cited at least 8 or more times, and the remaining articles have been cited 8 or less. So can you see that? Means 7 papers cited by 10 times, 8 papers cited by 9 times, and 9 papers cited by 8 times. So means 8 number of papers at least cited by 8 times. So that's why H index is 8. 9th paper he published, but it was not cited by 9 times. It's not cited, it's less than 9. So sorry, I put it blue, but it should be 8. Is it clear?
Yep.
So 8 papers cited by 9 times. So if you look at this, even if your 8 papers it's cited by 40 times, and your 9th paper is cited by only 8 times, still your H index will be 8. Even 8 paper is cited by like 100 times, 5 paper cited by 50 times, whatever it is. But unless if your 9th paper is not going more than 8 or not going to 9th, your H index still will be the 8th one. So that will tell you the quality of all the papers, this one. like 12 paper is cited only once. So although you published 12 paper, but maybe 12 paper is cited only once, that these papers have not very much impact on the academic community. So they will tell you like, okay, this is you published the paper, but that is not very high impact one, or maybe this is the paper people currently people are not looking into that way, and they are not finding it very interesting in that particular area. That's why not very much citation is. If that and it's supposed to be 12 paper is your latest paper. So if your latest paper coming in, and then you looking at the H index, looking at the citation, people looking, oh, okay, people will be more excited that, okay, this paper has some novelty or something like that. So then you can see that this paper having more citation. So clear?
One question here, Professor Asghar, if you
Yes,
can
what is
ask.
that?
Is this authorship as a first author or any author?
No, any author, as long as your name is there. So I will tell you this is advantages and disadvantages.
Okay.
Okay. So
Okay, thank you.
yeah, I will tell you later on the advantages and disadvantages of. It's a very good question, you know. So let's look at this H index of the some of the peoples around the world. So the number of Nobel Prize recipients in the physics in the last 20 years. So there, this is some I would say that from the databases I got it this one, that it appears in the PNAS that the peak is that the H index between 35 to 39. Most of the Nobel Prizes prize recipients got the date of the 35 and 39, in between the 35 to 39 H index in the Scopus. So this H index also varies within the different outlet like Google Scholars, Web of Science, and Scopus. So you can see that its H index is about 30 to 35 is the highest one. You know, 10 of the Nobel laureate, they got it from 10 to 12, is H index about 10 to 15. You know. Okay, I think why this. Sorry, just give me a second. Okay, so you can see that this is Albert Einstein one. His citation is about this amount, and H index is 11. I think. Okay. This is just example for you. So let's look at it. Is that important to me? I mean, how much generally H index is to us that, like, you know, when you start the career with the PhD, and we'll tell you the scientific output for the researchers, very few publications, then move into the associate professor, then people are expecting some more H index, and finally you go for professorships, then you for many publications, and also they also look for the more H index. So this is your H index should be increasing over the time, and you aiming for the professorship. So I found that this also interesting study by that. What is good H index for the professor in biology compared to the professor of psychology? So this is like I mentioned you earlier, and there are many queries, you know, come out from the people. Like I've seen people talking about from two different backgrounds, from two different research areas. They're talking about, okay, my H index is 20, and people from different areas, they talk about my index is 15. I think it's not a very good idea to compare into two different areas. So I got this example that like UK Russell group of universities, like the top 12 universities in the UK, Nottingham is one of them, like Ivy League University in the US. So what they found that come out like out of 88 academics identifying themselves as a full professor and their Google Scholar, the H index was 24 and the median was 20. So top 25% of the professor and an H index of 30 or greater. So this is general assumption and perception, general assumption when they go for promotion. So they say in the UK Russell group, if they will promote to the professor like about H index about 20 or 15 or 20 or 30, like you say 30 or greater, you know, in this UK Russell group. It will also vary within the discipline. Like I said, you compare apple with apple rather than apple and oranges. So it's varies between the disciplines. For example, computer science, the average H index mean is 23 and median is 21. For professorship, I'm talking about the professorship. Psychology, the H index mean is 26 and median is 19. Social sciences, the H index is 19 and median is 16. And biomedicines and biosciences, the H index means is 28 and median is 20. Biomedicine is higher as compared to the biology. So because it depends on the different area. Because some area people do more research and they have more citations, like biomedical is one of the emerging area. If you look at the chemical engineering, I can give you examples. They have very high H index because I think they are chemical. They publish a lot of papers due to their, I think, area. And you can see that most of the people in chemical engineering, they have very high citations and they because of that they have a high H index also. Okay. And the aspiring professor should aim to have their work cited 1,000 times. This is just roughly, this is some study came out that he, like a very aspiring professor, he should have 1,000 citations. And he says, okay, he has a good citation in, and he's a good professor. And H index average for their discipline, depending on which area. So they considered 1,000 citations from the Scopus is a good number for the professors in that biology area. Okay. So this is discipline variations. So you compare within the discipline. So I will give you some example of mine. Like you can see that this is a Google Scholar. So like I said, how to measure H index, you need to know the fundamental of how do we calculate. But nowadays there are different outlets. You can easily see into the website and databases, they can automatically calculate it. You need to open your Google Scholars and other platform. They will automatically include your citations and publications. And this is easily seen by the people and it's seen by the various people who's in the promotion committee or grant awarding committee. So Google Scholar. So Google Scholar, you can see this is my example. You open first of all, I think many people, they don't open this Google Scholars and Scopus. And I've seen it, it's my personal experience. I mentor many people and I'm putting more focus on mentoring people so they can get early promotion. And I've seen many people who came to me to see me with the good publications and other things. I mean, all the ingredients are there, but how to categorize those ingredients and it's not there. So you need to open the Google Scholar and Scopus and you can see your impact of your research. So this Google Scholar will tell you the total number of citations. It will tell you the H index. And like I mentioned, the I-10 index, it will also measure you the I-10 index. And this will also tell you like how you are performing over the years. Most of the grant awarding bodies, like we also look into the trend. It means that whether the trend is increasing, that is fine. It shouldn't be like 1 or 2 dip is fine. It can happen. Like COVID is here. So people have not done many research. You can see some dipping there, but with good researchers, he will publish some review papers, make good use of this COVID area. So they will still look at the trend also. And they will also look into how H index vary over the time. And would also tell you the individual papers, citations, how many papers of more than 100 citations and all these things. So these are very important measures and a lot of, in a good universities, like they have some internal fundings and other things, they look into that. Like for examples, in my universities, like University of Nottingham in the UK, there are different backend of excellence. One of the backend was future food, one of the backend of like histories, and there are several 14 backend came out. So many researchers, they have proposed like proposals for when they announced the backend. So University of Nottingham is going to fund a huge amount of funding for these backends. It's about millions of pounds. And you need to propose, each group has to propose. So like several, I think 100 proposals came out for these backends and they sent to the University of Nottingham in the UK. So out of 100 proposals, how to sort out that? It's very difficult to look into each individual group to sort out these group performance. So what they did, the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Academic Research, what he did, okay, out of 100, they asked all the group members of all the proposals, can you, give me each individual's publications record and only count those papers who have cited more than 100 times. Okay, so that was, I think, one way is good to, I think, to eliminate some of the things. So each group members, what they did, then they come back all the proposals, they did some exercise, and each group have 10 members or 12 members. So those members were included who has more than 100 citations for each papers, and rest of the papers excluded that. So that was the first screening. So from 100 more than 100 proposals, it went down to the 50 proposals, and finally they approved 14 out of 100. They 14 or 7, and then finally they come out of the 7 beacon of excellence, and they invested huge amount of funding. Like Future Food is about like 120 million US dollar. They funded into just one vector, you know. So there are slavery vector, there is also some art and social sciences, there are some other people. So this is a good way of eliminating or screening some way. So this is what they did it. So Google Scholar, so this is very easy to open it. Just open it. It will also tell you the researcher, co-researcher here in the right-hand side. So this will give you some of the impact. That was the individual level. It will also tell you the impact of yours at the institutional level. So some people are external funding agencies, they don't know about the University of Nottingham. So what they will do, like say, if I am applying the grant for funding for the Rockefeller Foundations and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundations, the easy way to check it through that, they will look for the how the organization is performing. So they will go into the how you individuals are performing with your organizations. So like I said, this is an interactive workshop, and if it is alive, I can show you something, you know, you can practice on that. So you can go next page, and you can see. So what they can do, they can type it like, you know, University of Nottingham, Malaysia campus, and you will find out your record, where you stand in your organizations. You can see that I'm here. So you can see the top level of the scientists performing in the University of Nottingham. So they will look into your performance within the institutions, you know. So that is another way of measuring your impact. Okay, so that's for a very easy way. One thing is that using the Google Scholar. Google Scholar, I think this is very popular, but this is not very scientific, I would say that, because it collects all the matrices from the, like if your paper is cited by some newspaper or something like that, it will all come into the Google Scholar. But it is a very good way to quick check it that, you know, quick check your performance, at least some idea about yourself. Google Scholar will tell you. And very quick way of measuring them means that there is no hurdle that just go to Google Scholar and type your name, you can get it. And this happened to me. Like when I applied for the professorship, I came to know that the promotion committee in the UK, they sit it and then Deputy Vice Chancellor research, and he said that his H index, this is what told by my dean, what happened that this H index was like, I applied when my H index was like 16. And still the Deputy Vice Chancellor commented on the promotion committee panel, okay, this is the 15 H index is not very good. So, and then immediately the Associate Deputy Vice Chancellor in Malaysia campus, he went here in the mobile, he checked into my name, and then 15, my H index becomes 17 at that time. That is a very good example, it means, because when I applied, so that time was 15, and you know that when we applied, like after 3 months, the promotion committee sit down and that H index increase. So this is one example to just look at the quick check. He immediately, and I appreciate this guy that he immediately check and show that no, H index is increased. So that is something like very easy, very quick to check some individual's performance. So I will give these examples. The second thing is go for the Scopus. This is also very important. So how you do that? You go to the Scopus to log in. If outside the campus, you know, then you have to go through your institutional, means individually you can't look into all the impact or all the matrices at the individual level. You have to go through the institutions. Even if you're outside of the campus, you can choose the UK Access Management Systems, then type the University of Nottingham and your like password, university password, and your email, and then you can go to the university level and you can open your account here, University of Nottingham, Malaysia campus in the Scopus. Okay, and then you can do the author check. Like I said, Google Scholar is very easy. You don't need anything, but here you need login details, institutional login, then you can check the individual's performance. I cannot check yours unless, you know, authors check, I can do that, but I cannot get it very detailed information about yourself. So you have to go through them. You can open the account by institutions and you can type the author's name, Ali, and author's name, Asghar. Then you have to go to the next further stage because there are so many Asghar Ali here, and then you can see that a lot of Asghar Ali is coming out. So this is a hurdle, like you know, see Asghar Ali from Jamia Haddad, New Delhi, and there are Asghar Ali from University of Nottingham, Malaysia campus. There is a Asghar Ali from Cape Town and Chittagong University. Then you need to know that, okay, this is Asghar Ali, Malaysia campus. Then you click it here, and then you can go to look into the performance here. Then this is Asghar Ali, and this is from University of Nowadays, very good thing is coming like ORCID ID. If you know, in every applications they are asking for the ORCID ID. So this is an individual ID you need to mention in your CV. So they can just simply type the ORCID ID, and there will be no problem with like Ali Asgar is from Nottingham or Hamdard in India. So at Indexa, you can see the matrices like documents and citations, and it will tell you the trend, how many documents you publish, like 14 in a year, 15 in a year, and how the citation index is going on into the Scopus. Similar thing in the Scopus. It will also give you the trend. Like I said, trend is very important for any academic. The trend is very important. Like from 2017, the trend is increasing. Your citation, you know, that is very important, and I hope it will increase by the end of December. So people look into how you were good and how you are doing it and what the trend shows about the future. So many, like say, now is a big game when you go for the top universities for professorships and anything. So they are not only looking to past performance, they are more interested in what we'll be able to do in the future. That trends at least is give you some confidence to them that how the trends going upward. And then further categorize into that, okay, you have this citations, you have this H index. So I can say that the H index calculate from the databases, and it will tell you if any Scopus cited journals, it will tell you that it comes under the Scopus, and that will be counted as the H index. But if you go further detailed into that for particular reasons, you can see that which journal you have published more. Like I said, post-harvest biology, go back to the SJR, look at the quality of this journal, post-harvest biology. It comes like top 2 journals in my area, and how many papers you have published in these post-harvest biology journals. How many papers in Acta Horticulture, like 14% is published in these journals, 11% you have generally published in this journal, 11% in this journal, and 3.5% another 30% in these journals. That will give you the quality of papers just from this Scopus. You can get all this by type, by year, or by subject. You can go into more detail into that scrutinization of your paper. Like you can see that post-harvest biology 12, Acta Horticulture 10, it will give you all the details which journals you are publishing into that. Scopus will tell you everything. So you don't have to go to the SGR and JCR website to look into that. Unless you are from different field, then you have to go into that particular site, look into that post-harvest biology in this area, what is the ranking of that, then you will be able to know that. And then you can see that H index is also increasing into your documents, analyze author output. You will see that all your papers and how many citations, like this paper, the Scopus, same as Google Scholar, and this is the trend of for that. So if you look into that, and you can see that now many funding bodies look into not the author's performance, not the general performance, also they look into your organization performance. So if you look at the organization as a whole, University of Nottingham, Malaysia campus, you will see that the top publications coming from the engineering, and within the engineering for chemical engineering, environmental engineering, computer science, and then agriculture and biological sciences. You will look at the pie chart, 27.4% is from engineering, and this is from chemical engineering, and this is from chemical engineering, and this is from engineering, and the further categorization of each particular area. So let's say Bill and Melinda Gates, they want to fund in the area of something like plant science or agriculture science. So if they will look into that, how you organize, how strong base you have, this organization have, whether is it based on individual, like maybe I'm very good in publication as an individual, but what about the performance and the group members? So now their focus is more going for the group members. So they will look into that, how this organization in this particular area, agriculture and biological sciences. They will see that agriculture and biological sciences, and this is the performance. So they will tell you the group performance of the organizations. Okay, so now come to the limitations of H index. I think so. There are several limitations of also for this H index, like say insensitivity to the highly cited papers. It means that you have published one paper in Nature or one paper in Cells, which has 5,000 citations, and then another fifth paper into the very good journal, but not as high impact like Nature or something like that, and that is like 5 papers. So your H index is 5, then there is insensitive to the highly cited papers. That doesn't count your Nature paper. Nature paper is there, although it has a 5,000 citations, but if you are not publishing more paper, it is not going to increase your H index. The second negative thing is that many people may have the same H index and thus cannot differentiate their scientific achievements. You know, because like somebody has asked about that, whether you have an individual author or a group, or you are one of them author. So H index calculate you should be author among the group members. So that will your H index will increase. So it will not tell you whether you are a first author, second author, third author. You can be a member of this group, and that will increase your H index. Many people may have the same H index and thus cannot differentiate their scientific achievements. Like I have H index 12, you have H index 12. Maybe I have published 20 papers, you publish only 12 papers. So that is, we both are similar if we have H index of 5. So there are no difference between me and you if you're only seeing the H index, not the citations. That is the insensitive, that is the limitations of H index. Okay. Is this fair to rank scientists of varying level of the seniority? This is also another limitations. Like have been working in the university for the last 10 years, you are just a new member, you are working in the 5 years. That will also affect the H index because I've been working for the long time. So by principles, I should have more H index if I am performing at a good level, you know. So that is not a fair to rank the scientists of varying level of seniority. Like professors and associate professors, you can't be comparing between them. It does not take into account the number of authors on a papers. A scientist who is the sole author of a paper with 100 citations should be given more credit than the one who is a similar cited paper with 10 co-authors. Like somebody has asked the same questions like that. It just doesn't take the account, like I can publish an individual, a single author. So by right, I should get more credit as compared to like you are having 3 or 4 group member publishing the single papers. So that is the insensitive to that. And it penalizes early career scientists. Like if you are just new, so you have only published 10 paper, although the 10 paper you publish in 10 Nature publications, but you are very new, you only publish 10, so no way your H index can increase by 10. So you, whatever citation, your citation may be a 5,000 or 6,000, 10,000, but your H index will not be increasing more than 5 because you have only published the 5 papers. So in order to have a sex index, your 6 paper should have at least 6, at least they should have cited by 6 times. So it also, it will show you the number of publications. So means that it is also a good thing, means that if you look at the positive point is that, and it is something to reflect on you. Like sometimes I think and reflect on, okay, am I doing good? Last year I didn't publish anything. My H index is stick to the 15. And it's not going to the next one. So in order to go to the 16th level, at least you should publish 16 paper. Then you can assume that in future you may have 16 H index. So that is very important. So an outstanding scientist with only a small number of publications cannot have a high H index, like what I mentioned just now. So this is another limitation of that. So there are a lot of positive sides. There are also negative sides. But what are the limitations we have? We all know that those who are sitting in the promotion committee, those who are sitting in the funding agencies, if they have a clear concept of this, that is very, very important for academic. And that's why I'm giving this talk to the various levels. You should understand the meaning of H index. You should understand the what is the drawback, what is the positive, and what are the negative things of these H indexes. That then you can draw the conclusion. And when we sit into the panels and promotion committee, we all consider these kind of factors. You know, it's not actually, many people say that, oh, okay, this is not fair, this is not fair. But basically, they all consider all these factors when analyzing your grant or analyzing your promotions, or they're looking for the jobs. So these are the limitations, you know. In conclusion, H integrate in both productivity and impact in a single factor. The single H index will tell you the productivity and the quality. Productivity, like I said, if you publishing 16 paper, you will not have any 6 H index in the future. Although you have been working for the next 20 years or 30 years or 40 years, it will give you the productivity. It means you need to produce more paper and also the quality. Although if you publish the 16 paper, but it is of not good quality and people are not citing and you're not getting citations more than 16 times, you will not increase your H index. So that's why the H index will give you the productivity and the quality of the individuals in a single factor way. Easy to use and understand, very easy to use and understand. and useful tool, especially for the early career researcher. It's very useful tool for the early career researcher. It also motivates you, like let's say I have published and I know that this paper is not very good quality. It's not, it doesn't motivate me. But let's say I have if I'm doing a research, it motivates me, it inspires me to do a good job and publish in a good journal, so it has better citations, so I can increase my H index. I think there are some question and answer. Please wait for that. I will come back to you. Let me finish this one if you don't mind it, please. Okay. So then comes to the Altimetrics. So I said that there are several matrices which are the quantitative way. You can measure the quantitative. What are the matrices I have shown until now? I think anybody can judge it, whether I am from engineering or not. If you are from the engineering, I will look into these databases and I will be able to tell you your qualitative, your quantitative matrices based on these databases. So that is not very difficult nowadays, and that is why it is very, very important nowadays to look into these matrices. Come to the Altimetrics. This is very different from the traditional matrices like H-index and quality of papers and publications and all these things. Is demonstrate the influence of your work on the social media or the funder or evaluations, and means who is talking about your work, basically Altimetrics. And people were not, I mean, this is just like a gossip, you are in a layman terms, it's like a gossip who's talking about your papers and who's talking about your work. It's a non-traditional matrix, propose an alternative to more traditional citation impact matrices such as impact factors and H index. It can only complement, it is only useful when you have all these things previously what I mentioned to you. It is added value to your quantitative matrices. If you don't have quantitative method, it has no value or very little value. Means it's just like you are just talking, there is no scientific evidences. These are not scientific evidences, but it is based on your scientific evidences, people talking about that is an Altimetrics. Like you have publication, then you can tweet it and you can see how many tweets on that. That is an Altimetrics. So this was proposed in 2010 as a generalization of article level matrices. Altimetrics means article level matrices. Okay, so these are the qualitative matrices, and for example, media coverage and other things. So how they work? Altimetrics can answer questions such as how many times what is downloaded. If you go to the ResearchGate and you can see that there are different platforms, you can see that these are the papers and how many times it has been downloaded. If you go to the Elsevier and Science Direct, you can see how many times a paper has been downloaded or how many times people had read it, and they will give you the. So who's reading my work on Mendeley, bookmarking sites, and everything? You can see who's reading your work. Was it covered by any news agencies, any newspaper? They're coming your work. I'll show you some example later on, and all other researchers commenting on it. Any comments from that when you tweet it? Any comments from that when you put on the LinkedIn? Any comment on that? And how many times it was shared on Facebook, Twitter, and etc. And of which country are looking into my research? Means that if you put on the LinkedIn and you can see your papers, you can see that how many people you can see that 1,000 views or 2,000 views. And if you go further, you can see how many views from UK, how many from Malaysia, how many from USA. These are the matrices. You can look into that. For example, you can see that this is the ResearchGate, like this is giving my example again. Congratulations, your 229 reads, and you were the most read authors from your institutions. These kind of Altimetrics means the most read from the institutions. So these are the Altimetrics, and these are the paper. So many people have interest. They have read this paper for this particular week, and these are the Altimetrics. Again, congratulations with 16 new citations. You were the most cited researcher from your department. So these are some of the Altimetrics on your work on the social media. Other platforms are very important nowadays, like in news outlet, magazines. Like this is the conversation. This is a very good scientific. This is the conversation where it talks about your research work into the very layman style, and this is getting very popular in conversation in UK, Europe, and Australia. So I published one article, "The Natural Way to Keep Food Fresh and Stop the Rot." It's coming from my same article which I've been showing you. I've shown you in my Google or Scopus, effect of edible coatings on this one, and then here I make into very layman term, and then you can see that how many people have downloaded and how many people have, University of Nottingham is a partner for this conversation, and we'll tell you how many people have interest, and there are a lot of queries, question and answers, and some what is called some queries and some comments will be seen here. Another one you can see from the USA, Earth Sky is a very scientific outlet. So he interviewed me and he found that Asghar Ali edible coatings keep fruit and vegetable fresh. It also, like I said, it can complement your quantitative data. So it's coming from the same publications, and then he's talking about my chitosan edible coating, how does it work, and what about that. Then it's coming into the other scientific outlet, media outlet. Second, like Food Tank is an NGO in the USA, and he's talking about more on food waste and food losses. This is becoming very popular. And what they have found that 8 innovations sending food loss in the global south. And mine one is like what I have developed, gum arabic based coating. It comes 4 out of 8 innovations. You can see that on edible coatings and all these things. So these things, flooded with the media outlet is coming from your scientific evidences. So these are the examples. Another example, like magazines, National Geography, we all know that this is National Geography Hungary. He published my article, he published it on the same thing, chitosan coating. Again, it's coming from my evidence-based study, which is coming from my scientific study, and they published National Geographic in the Mary Lehman camp. Okay, this in the Center of Excellence for Post-Harvest Technology in Malaysia, they are doing this kind of research, and it's going to the general audience. Actually, that one is more on scientific audience, and this is going to the general audience, the National Geography. An example, this come into the Star newspaper in Malaysia, improving the food quality. Same thing, this is the example of Altmetrics. Another, you can go to the Asia magazines, you can see the Asia magazines, I've been using ozone to protect papaya. You can see that from University of Nottingham, Malaysia campus. So these kind of examples, means these kind of Altmetrics, you just type the name of Asghar Ali and you will easily find that these are the general articles coming into the Google one. So these will also give you an impact on the evaluators and other funding agencies. Look into the Altmetrics. And after looking into the Altmetric, you can further go into detail to look at the scientific things. This is another example of this Altmetric, like many journals, like I said, these are the top journal, food chemistry and post-harvest biology in my area. And then again, if you look further quality of these things, you can see they publish top 25 hottest articles in this particular area. And they published selective from all these journals until now, and they found that out of top 25 hottest articles, and it comes like mine is 12. In another journal, it comes like 12. These two different articles, 2 different journals, and that comes to the top 25 hottest articles. So based on citations and based on your research. So that is also another example of Altmetrics in the systems. Other than that, people also look into that, like, you sit in the different funding agencies. Some examples of that, like, GCRF, like I look at the UK Research Innovations, which gives the funding, one of the highest funding in the world, something like Global Challenges Research Fund, GCRF, which is about multi-million pounds funding, and they're tackling the Global Challenge Research Fund. So I'm one of the reviewers, and this is another impact of your work that. Some example of that is the Ministry of Italy, Ministry of Science in Italy, and this is another impact of your research, which will tell you the quality of your work. So bottom line is that no single scholarship matrix is perfect, must be considered together. If you Google Scholar, people will say this is not fine, then Scopus is fine. Quality of the journals, quality of your publications, citations, H-index. So none of the matrices are perfect, but this a combination of those matrices are good one. Early in your career, focus on abstract, publications, and then grant. This is very important. If you are early career researcher, focus from the, you go step by step. This always tell you go step by step. Don't go much detail, write the abstract, publish the paper, but publish in a good journals, at least Scopus cited journals, and then go for the grant. Getting grant is very important because you will have funding, you will have money, then you have a lot of discretion to do your research, to focus on your research, you can mold your research, whatever you want, you have academic freedom on that. So getting grant, writing the academic grant, maybe in future, if you guys allowed me, I will give you some other talks on how to write good grants and how to publish a good paper on that. That is the successive of this one. So getting grant is very important, whether it is small grant. I started a very small grant, seed grant. Even if you get a few thousand seed grant, at least it will give you a freedom to do the research. The first thing is that if you are early career, focus on the grant. This is very, very important. Get the small, don't bother about the amount. Get the small amount, at least it will give, because none of the institutions give you some money to do the research. So that will give you authority to go to the next level. Aim for the higher impact journals, where possible, but keep the focus on the audience. Sometimes what people do mistake is that, okay, I want to publish high impact journal in food science. Maybe that journal have a high impact journal, but what is the audience? For example, I'm publishing a paper on ozone, and I can see that there is a journal called Ozone, which is an impact factor of 3 or 4, and there is another journal is post-harvest biology and technology, which is impact factor of 10 or 12. So people will say, okay, I want to publish into the post-harvest biology journal because impact factor is 12. That is fine, you can publish it, but I will also have to look at the audience, where their paper gives you interest to that particular audience, So I will say, okay, ozone, there will be better chance to get more citations. So look at the audience. Add reviews, this is very important. Book chapters when opportunity arises. Add reviews are very good. I think young researcher, sometimes those were the days, it was very difficult to write a review by the young researchers, but now it's very quite common. Like I am a PhD student, I make full use of that during the last 1 year during the COVID. So there was no activities going, no activities were going into the lab. So I asked them to write a review papers, although they are very not good, but at least they will give you some draft and you can work on that and you can publish a good review papers. And when you're writing a review, that is one thing is that reviews especially are usually highly cited because many people will cite your review. So now it's much easier for postgraduate students to write a review on that. But last time, many journals, they will not allow you, now they will not allow you to write. Many journals, they don't allow you to give a review papers. But if your supervisor is good, then you will give a lot of invitations. Like I get always a very good invitations to write a review. Then I engage my students. I engage my young researchers. Now I've started looking to, there are many collaborators in India. They're very young, good scientists in India. So I engage them nowadays. Sometimes they give you freedom. They invite me and then give me freedom to choose other people. So this is how you work in the collaborative. So I invite them, some young guys, they are very good into that. They are working very enthusiastic. So this is you can train them, you can mentor them. So I will further invite them, and then make good use of writing a review paper on that. So there are some references taken from these guides, So what next is that just open your profile in Google Scholars and Scopus. Don't be shy, even if you have a few paper citations, that is still fine. At least people will look into that and started citing more papers on that. So I hope it has clarified all your details, and I hope it will be useful for you to look into those databases. I'm always available. Send me an email. I will be happy to help you. We will have interactive session next time. Please feel free to email me, and I'm always happy to talk to you in person. And I'm very happy to give you any assistance you need in this academic area. So this is my email. Thank you very much for giving this opportunity. Give me a chance to share my opinions on this academic performance and academic matrices. So please feel free to ask any questions. Sorry, I didn't answer all the questions because I think I was delaying. Normally this talk is 2 hours with the question and answer. I'm very happy to take your questions now, please. So this is over to you, Dr. Khalil.
Thank you very much, Professor Asghar.
Yeah.
There are a few questions here, but before that, I would like to thank you for a highly informative session. There's a lot of details here, and I'm not sure how much we can absorb in one sitting. Yeah. And I'm sure you have spent a large amount of time putting all these data together. Yeah. So at the outset, have you uploaded these slides somewhere so that people, it's more a reference book than a textbook. That's how I look at it, because we can go to it anytime. So if you haven't already done, I would suggest you can remove if there is any copyrighted material, and if there is anything else, and then upload it as a PDF for people to refer to it. And then with having said that, let me go to the question answer section. Okay. Dauphin Digitogi Moro has the following set of questions. How best can one assess self on the H-index? I think you have covered that. What strategies are required to pursue an outstanding H-index? Okay. I would add, especially for early career academicians.
Okay. See, the positive side of the H index is that it motivates you to do a good research. So that is a good positive sign. It means that when you order to increase your H index, you have to make sure what the current audience wanted. What is your current researcher in your area, what they are looking forward for it. Whether you are doing this research, do you think that it will attract more people to do this kind of research? Is there any novelty of that? So in order to increase that index, you have to look into the novelty of the research. And again, in order to have a more high index, novelty means it's not only the novel work or maybe novel methodology. When you publish a paper which something same methodology used by several people, and you just add something more ingredient onto that, and that could be followed by some other people, so they will cite more paper on that. So having an outstanding H index is that keep doing good works and publishing the good papers. Like I said, I have given you one example, like rather than looking the high impact journals, rather also looking into the audience, means that where this paper will be cited by the more people. That is important. Like same papers you can publish into high index journal, high impact factor journals, but maybe for that particular research, there will not be many audience in that particular journal. But if you go to the specific journal like ozone, like I said, I do some more research on ozone. I will go for the ozone journal. Maybe there will be more research on that, than many people will be cited on those papers on that. So one thing is that do a good research. Make sure that there's a novelty on that, whether it is in the methodology or anywhere, and also publish in the right places.
So here's the question probably which you have answered. Why it's a set of questions again from Sira Ding.
Oh, Sira Ding, yeah. I know this person very well. Yeah, I wanted to point.
Okay. Why the variation in H index between Scopus and Google Scholar? And he has followed up with what can an author do to get more citations per paper?
Okay, so first thing is that what is the variation is H index in Google? Like I said, Google Scholar is a very general one. So Google Scholar will cite like some news outlet. If he has cited my papers, okay, based on that, then it will count it as paper also. Okay, that's why Google Scholar have more citation than Scopus only include the citation on the scientific journals. Like my paper cited by another scientific paper, then it only counted. But Google Scholar, it also takes the general citations, like general citations, something like a newspaper or media outlet or somewhere else.
Okay. Yeah, did you want to finish that? Something?
No, what can an author to do get more citations per paper? Like I said, to get more citations per paper means, like I said, you have to do a good work, publish in the right journals, and I think one of the strategies that you do something new in that particular papers. Like I said, one strategy is that if you adopting a new methodology, that is the quick way to do a citation. Like you saw my one paper is 4,000 citations. It's the effect of chitosan coating on quality of papaya anthracnose. So what I did in that paper, I did not. That was my paper I published during my PhD time. I think after finishing PhD, and then I published that paper. So what happened in that paper? I realized that because I had adopted one methodology, many people do the respiration rate. So when you do the respiration, I am telling this now because he's more technical guy. I know him. So when you do the respiration rate, so people put in the fruits in the jar and they measure. This is a very normal procedure. But I went into one further. I extract the gas from the cavity of papaya fruit. That's I elaborated that methodology, how you take the gas from the cavity, and that was a very, very, very tough way, because when you take the gas, the papaya pulp will come out and it will spoil the GC and GCMS. So, and because of one of the reasons that the paper become more cited, So that is the way. It means you do something novel, something very good, something looking forward. What people looking into that in that directions. So you can see that edible coatings papers are cited nowadays, because these are environmentally friendly. These are alternative management of diseases. People don't like using pesticides and all those things. So this is more natural. So people have more interest. That will enable you to going into that direction, having more citations and all these things. I hope I answer your questions. Yeah.
there's on other channels, because as you know, we are also on Facebook, and there are people sometimes who ask questions there. We have a couple of questions again. If you
On
have the
Facebook?
energy,
From Facebook?
yeah, we live stream on Facebook.
Okay, I can't see that.
But that is for a close, yeah, it's for a close group of our members. And here's a question for you. How, and this is something that we always have when we start our careers, how to figure out what journals to submit my work. This person is particularly from computer science, but I think you can take a general stab at it.
What are you saying there?
How to figure out what journals to submit my work. I have my paper ready. How do I decide which journal to send it to?
Okay, so I think, okay, you have done that paper, you already completed writing a draft, and now you the only person who will tell you, because you are looking into the citations, and you have cited many papers for your papers, right? That is a good way. Go back again and look at the where you have cited one and which journals you cited most. But that is also very subjective, because if you're not looking into proper databases and you are biased with looking into proper databases, I see many papers come to review to me, and I always found that some people from Africa, they try to cite their own papers and try to cite their paper from within the regions. If you're not biased, if you're looking at the citations and you are already written a draft, look at the papers where you have collected those references from there. And that will give you an idea where to publish that one. Second thing, I show you some example of like SJR scientific journal ranking. You go there, you go to the computer science engineering, go to science, or go to the computer science, and within computer science, go to the particular area, and then close to your area. At least if you don't find the exact area, at least you will find some area which is very close to you, and then you can look into that citation journals, SJR website, ScienceMogo. And you go find out what are the top journals, what are the Q1 journals, at least try to publish in Q1 journals. And never be disheartened, like a young career researchers, don't think that you can't publish in the high impact journal. I'm telling you, you can publish in the high impact journal, so don't be demotivated. Write paper in a very right way, very good way, and try to publish. There will be writing skills, how to write a scientific papers, that is very important for you. So write in a proper way and target the top journals. If you have some novelties or little novelties, there are a way to do that. Like I had a paper which has been rejected for many years, and I knew that has going to be rejected. But when I re-look into the data and reanalyze the data, and I found that one parameter was very good, and I reflected in that particular parameter in the title, and he got accepted that. So never think that your paper, you start with the low index paper journals or low quality papers. I can give you my example. When I joined the Nottingham University, I thought that as a PhD student, I will not be able to publish in the top journals. So I started with the medium range or low range, and they all got rejected. Even the low range, they all rejected, And then at a time, like in one day, like 3 rejections or 4 rejections, all demotivated me. Then I came into where, okay, there's a lot of this thing and that thing. Many things came to my mind, and I closed down all these things. And again, after 1 month or 2 months, I look into the feedback given by the reviewers, and I know these feedbacks are very good and very genuine. Initially, I got biased, and I say, okay, because it's coming from the third country, they don't look into that. I was thinking like that. Then I improved those papers, and you know that, and I submitted the top journal. The low-ranking journal, they rejected me, and these were my first paper, like post-harvest biology and food chemistry. These are top journals in my area, and they accepted those papers. Initially, they rejected 6 times, 7 journals they rejected me, and all were with a very low quality of journals, because I thought that I can only publish in the low quality journals. That motivates me. So never think that you target the top journals, but write the paper in a good journals. And once it's rejected, don't be demotivated yourself, please. So get the feedback and look into the feedback, look at the comments, and improve your papers by looking into comments, and then again submit it. So I'm telling you, my papers got rejected several times in a day, in a week. Like normally, most of the editors, like I'm the associate editor, normally I sit Saturday 1 hour, 1.5 hours in the morning, and then decide which one. So most of the rejection, you can see that if you're submitting a paper coming on Saturday or Sunday, because most people got time on Saturday and Sunday, and they reject. So in one Saturday, I got rejection. Several papers got rejected. I demotivated. Please don't demotivate yourself. So this is a good advice. Look into the comments. They're all genuine comments. Most 99% comments are, 98% comments are genuine. although 2% I know because this not falls into that particular area, and then you can easily solve that problem. You can tell them this is not fair. It happens to me. I published one paper in Journal of Agriculture and Food Chemistry, which is a very top journal in ACS, American Chemical Society. And they given the comments to me that this is not good, this is not, and I immediately wrote back to the editor, I do not agree with this comment, I do not agree with this comment. And you know that immediately, I think this was like evening time, I wrote from here, and after 1 hour it came, okay, I agree with your points, and then accepted. So from rejection is went into exception. So you need to write back. If you are not agree with that, you're not satisfied with the comments, you have to write back to the editors. And most of the editors are genuine, they will not consider you there. Okay?
Okay, thank you very much. For those who don't know, Professor Asghar is speaking from Malaysia, where it is past midnight now, so we will let him go. Before that, I will hand over to Nahida. Nahida, please do your thing.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. I am Nahida and I am here to present the vote of thanks for today's webinar. I'd like to thank our dignified speaker, Professor Asghar Ali sir, for enlightening us with his knowledge. It was an interesting webinar, sir. It was full of knowledge and awareness about different matrices. I'm pretty sure this webinar will help the early researchers and also the established academicians to stand out in a group with better matrices, and it would also help them in creating more impact in their respective careers. I extend my gratitude to you, Professor Asghar Ali sir, to take out time from your busy schedule to empower us with this highly informative session. Thank you so much, sir. I would extend my gratitude to AMP for organizing this webinar. I'd also like to thank all the participants for attending this webinar and making it a successful. And I must also thank the organizing AMP webinar team volunteers for working hard for past few days to make this webinar successful. We also have upcoming webinar on education in the United States, scholarship and funding. I request the participants to visit our official websites for more updates. Thank you so much, everyone. I end my speech here.